It's going to be lovely weather for a walk today, although I think it's going to rain a bit later on, but Naz will fill you in a bit later. At the moment, let's take you through the papers this morning with writer Alix Oneill and author and barrister Bobby Freeman. Welcome to you. Good morning.
Morning, both. Morning.
Starting off with you, first of all, Alix, you're having a look at, well, this is after the momentous vote in the Republic of Ireland, really the pressure perhaps that Theresa May is now under to replicate this in Northern Ireland.
Absolutely. I mean, good luck to her is all I can say. I'm from Northern Ireland. It's my neck of the woods. And this is a fight that Northern Irish women have been trying to get on the table for a long time. The problem is there is an appetite for it. People would like to see social reform. They'd like to see abortion legalised. Same thing, they'd like to see gay marriage. A lot of people in Northern Ireland, even people who vote for the DUP, but in Northern Ireland, politics is still very tribal. So people will still, if you're a unionist, you're still going to vote for the DUP, even though they don't support social reform. So May's issue is obviously she's relying on the DUP to prop up the government. Northern Ireland is devolved, so she can't force them to adopt the same legislation, abortion legislation, as in the rest of the UK. And at the same time, people are saying, OK, well, why not have a referendum? But the government hasn't sat for over a year. So it's really tricky. The only way that she can affect change is by reintroducing direct rule, which nobody wants. It's a really, I don't often feel sorry for May, but in this case,
no, it's
I think
a real balancing act.
It would be possible for the UK Parliament to legislate directly, particularly as there is direct rule at the moment. I mean, what's being talked about is Stella Creasy's going to put forward an amendment to the domestic violence bill that's going through Parliament at the moment. And I think the difficulty that Theresa May has, but it's potentially an opportunity for her because her hands are tied, is that she doesn't have the numbers to stop this vote going through, because there are already a huge number of Conservative MPs and ministers, even people like Anne Milton and Penny Mordaunt and lots of other senior figures like Nicky Morgan, who are saying that they support this change. So if this amendment is put down, I don't see how Theresa May would be able to stop it. And ultimately, she doesn't want to. Theresa May supports extending abortion legislation to...
But it's about her balancing act with the relationship with the DUP, who have those all-important 10
But it's fine if Theresa May goes to them and says, which is the truth, that she cannot deliver on this because she just doesn't have the numbers. Well, then the DUP will just have to accept that.
You've never met the DUP.
I have met the DUP because
these guys are
lived in
streperous. I mean, they will put up a good fight.
No, I know that, and I worked in Northern Ireland for a year, and I made a documentary on abortion in Northern Ireland. And yes, of course, I know how strong the DUP feel about it, but ultimately, the UK just legislated in the British Virgin Islands against the wishes of the British Virgin Islanders about their company register. So they've set a precedent recently, and ultimately Labour will vote to make an abortion law change, and you only need a handful of Tory backbenchers to vote for it. So it won't be in Theresa May's gift to stop this. That's what I hope, anyway.
OK, Dan, you picked out the story in The Guardian about Jacob Rees-Mogg urging the Prime Minister to revive a non-deal EU threat. Sorry, Bobby. Bobby, I call you Dan.
It's a better name than Bobby.
Yeah. No.
I might
Bobby
take
it is.
that from
Bobby
now
it is. To revive a non-EU threat.
Yes, it's interesting. It's coming out of the Sunday morning interviews yesterday. This is the big calculation for the European Research Group, which is this group of about 60 Tory MPs. Who are obviously the hard Brexiteers. And Jacob Rees-Mogg has criticised Theresa May's negotiating strategy, and he's saying that she should still be saying that we might accept a no-deal scenario. But it seems pretty unrealistic to me. We're not far off March 2019, which is when we're going to be leaving if we don't have this transition period. And I don't think there's anyone who, apart from Jacob Rees-Mogg, really, who's saying that we would possibly be prepared now for that kind of no-deal scenario. So I don't see how that would work.
That we're in a stronger position than we realise, and that sort of £40 billion is a sum that they obviously want to hold on to. So Theresa May should realise that there is much more in our trunk to deal with the EU than we perhaps might have thought.
Well, we obviously do have that £40 billion payment, but ultimately we're going to be in a disaster scenario if we don't have the arrangements in place once we leave. And so, I mean, I think this is all a little bit of posturing. What this is about is upping the pressure on Theresa May. This hard Brexit group wants to force Theresa May to bring forward the legislation a bit more quickly, and the reason for that is that they think there's a bit of an opportunity with Heidi Alexander having resigned from the Commons. There's another Labour MP who's too ill to vote at the moment. moment. So I think the Hard Brexit Group wants to bring this on to try and get through that harder version of Brexit. But ultimately, Theresa May has got to broker a deal between the various wings of the party.
Yeah, for sure.
I think she's done that quite well.
Do we think this says a little bit more about Jacob Rees-Mogg, that he might be vying for
bid
position?
for PM. Exactly.
He's not ruled it out, has
He's
he?
bought a property quite close to Downing Street, isn't he? Was that the line that came out the other day?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got it in his line of sight. It's never going to happen.
Positioning himself.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the Mail, Bobby. And this is the story. No, it's not. It's in the Telegraph, actually. This is the Justice Secretary, David Gauke, suggesting that dinner party middle-class users of cocaine should think about how it's being sourced and the repercussions.
Yes, that's right, because we've obviously seen this year a huge spate of stabbings in London and elsewhere, and David Gauke is saying, well, if you are middle class and you think you're having a harmless line of cocaine, which obviously isn't harmless anyway, at your dinner party, there's also that real-life impact on that. I mean, I think in some ways, it's slightly passing the buck, maybe, because obviously you want to stop people giving money to drug dealers, and then that creates that kind of atmosphere. But equally, I think there are bigger societal problems on there, which is why people are in these gangs, why they're acting in this way. And I don't think it's enough to just say to middle-class people, you need to slightly change your behaviour.
Although I think as well, it's worth noting that, the same people who are walking around with their keep cups and buying fair trade, they don't really think about how this is affecting, the social implications of, instead of bringing out the after eights, they're bringing out a line of cocaine, thinking about in South America, the impact, the murder rates are rising, deforestation, all as a result of people wanting to party on a Saturday night. So I think...
Yeah, I mean, it's getting them to examine their behaviour, isn't it, really?
Alex, let's pick up on the story in the Mail about this Liverpool goalkeeper.
I feel so sorry for him.
It's had a bit of a nightmare. I mean, he had an absolute howler or two howlers during the game.
He's 24.
He's a young lad. He deserves the stick that he's received.
It's unbelievable. I think we're so quick to condemn people, to judge them, and especially via social media, just go in the attack. Yeah, he's a young lad, doesn't deserve this sort of abuse. I think we give our footballers, our sports heroes, just a really bad time of it, to be honest.
Well, he's had death threats.
Yeah,
Merseyside police are investigating.
There's not a logical response.
They were bad mistakes, OK? Let's not beat around the bush. But they were mistakes.
Yeah, but he don't deserve death threats.
It's a game.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
I'm going to get shot now, but...
Well, it's more than a game to some people.
It was the worst goalkeeping performance I can remember. But equally, he is just a kid. He's 24, and I think the worst thing was the fact at the end of the game, when he was in tears on the pitch, and none of his own players even came on.
I know.
He needs someone to put their arm around his shoulder.
He needed his mum.
It was Real Madrid players who went to him and put their arms around him. That's not good enough.
Dear. Bobby and Alex, thanks very much for the moment. We are going to take a break. Do stay with us. Much more coming up. That's awful, though. None of his own side comforted him. Oh. Was pretty spectacular. 6 foot off the ground. It's amazing.
But I don't know how he scored that goal. I mean, I think it is probably the best.
Shame it had to be against Liverpool.
Yeah.
My daughter was screaming, traitor!
Not as bad as Sergio Ramos, though.
Let's have a look at the last couple of papers. The Times. Tell us about hair dye, natural hair dye.
Yeah, so Ribena...
Why do we care?
Ribena, not so good for you, full of sugar, but researchers have found that the skins left over after you press all the Ribena could actually be great as a natural hair dye. So it's non-toxic. There are fears that synthetic hair dye can increase the risk of cancer, so you wouldn't have this. So yeah, they're going to look into making hair dye. It's not just purple, I'm assured. You can have lots of different colours. But then why don't you just press some berries yourself and just rub it into your head if you're looking for a cheap fix?
Well, if you've tasted the new sugar-free Ribena, all I can say is I'm glad that there is some use for Ribena now. Without the sugar, it's not so good.
Lots of things without sugar aren't so good. But that's another day to talk about that. The last story is in the Telegraph. This is about how your music takes can tell us about your personality.
Yes, well, that's what a new study says. All I can say is I've got awful taste in music, so I must have an awful personality, unfortunately. But what they say is apparently if you like easy listening music, then you're more talkative and energetic. And if you're an extrovert, you like relaxing and acoustic music. And they say if you are an opera lover, then you're more imaginative.
But surely it just depends on your mood and the time of day.
Yeah.
Say if you're in the gym, you're going to want high-tempoed music, but if you're at home after a long day of work, you're going to want to have something that's quite easy listening and chilled.
But I don't know. I mean, I think we all do have the just types of music that appeal to us naturally. So
And yours is?
Well, as I say, appalling.
Like what?
Nothing that I would say. All I would say is at university, I used to DJ, and I did the
You were a
cheese.
DJ?
A very bad
I was a DJ as well.
Oh my gosh!
That's another story.
And I always did it for the time of night where people were too drunk to remember it the next day, because it would be too embarrassing otherwise.
Yeah.
Go on. What was your closing track?
I'm literally not even...
No, we have to find out. I'm sorry, you're not leaving this
No,
studio.
it was just a horrible mix of cheesy music that I used to pre-mix because I couldn't actually DJ.
Cheesy's good. Have no shame.
Let me guess, Dirty Dancing, Baywatch Megamix, and
Were you there?
Grease.
Brilliant. Bobby and Alex, thanks very much. We shall see you a little later on to take us through some more papers and maybe some more tunes as well. Let's see what's happening with the weather now with Naz. Rowan, who fancies that?
No, thank you.
You're on your own.
She is quite literally on her own. Back with us to take us through the papers this morning, Alix Oneill and Bobby Friedman. We're going to kick off, Alex, with The Guardian. And this is an interesting debate that's been going on quite a bit at the moment, and this is about art and it being stolen, literally, from countries and brought here. And this one is in The Guardian, page 3, looted art.
Yeah, so historian David Olusoga, I hope I've pronounced his name correctly, he's saying that museums, Western museums, are full of art that doesn't belong to us, and that every country should be, it should be like a supermarket sweep style where you're given a trolley and you've got 2 minutes to read the British Museum. I'm hoping he's joking. But I do agree with him that this is cultural appropriation. Every country should be entitled to its own
well, it's not even that. It's theft, isn't it?
It is theft, exactly.
They didn't donate them. They were
exactly.
taken.
It's theft. And he suggests, obviously, there are a lot of exhibitions on long-term loan, but we should go further than that. We should. And the V&A, actually, I think, is going to give some art back to Ethiopia. How very good of them. But I think, yes, I mean, there is an argument to be made that places like Syria, the birthplace of human civilization, ISIS went in and destroyed a lot of really precious art. And how do you protect valuable treasures like that? But at the same time, I think, we absolutely should be giving countries the right to their own creations.
Well, they weren't taken to be protected, were they? I mean, that's slightly different, that situation with ISIS. I mean, they were just taken because they wanted to.
Yeah, it's just as colonial to say, oh, we're the only ones who can be trusted to look after these things, just as it's colonial to take them. And one of the examples given in the article was about the Benin bronzes from Nigeria, and we had no right to it at all. And so I think there's a clear moral case for giving it back. Clearly, the museums don't want to because it's part of their collection. But
draws in the tourists.
It does, but the joke about supermarket sweep, ultimately that was kind of how we took it, because people just grabbed as much as they could and brought it back here. So, I mean, there is no moral case, is there, for keeping it?
No.
Bobby, tell us more about this story that you picked out in the front page of the Telegraph. Allegations of match fixing in the England camp.
Yes, this is cricket match fixing, and it's really interesting because there was an Al Jazeera documentary about this, and the ECB have come out to say that there's no credible evidence at all, and all the players emphatically have denied any allegations of match fixing. What it's being said was being done was that players agreed for particular overs that there would be certain scores within them. So it's not necessarily match fixing, but rather spot fixing, but clearly still illegal and wrong. But it's interesting that the ECB has, instead of saying we're investigating this, they've said, well, we've looked at this and there's just no truth in it at all. So whether this story will go any further or not, we don't know. But these are unsubstantiated allegations, and ultimately the documentary was based on the evidence of one man who says he can fix matches. So whether he's a reliable source or not, I don't think we know.
Alex, take us into The Sun, and this is an incredibly sad story. This is the death, one of 2 deaths following that music festival that we saw was on front pages actually yesterday.
Yeah, so Georgia Jones, the 18-year-old who died after taking pills at the festival, her mom, obviously very distraught, has urged other young people not to take drugs. And I think this makes a very strong case for the legalisation of drugs. I think we should have an open and regulated market. I think that drug users should be treated as patients and not criminals. We are clearly losing the war on drugs, and we're just making drug lords very rich while everybody else suffers. So I think it opens the debate. We need to have a conversation about it anyway.
But when you see stories like this, and it has resulted, sadly, in deaths, do you think it deters people from taking drugs?
I think it might, because I think part of the buzz for young people is it's something that's forbidden, it's illegal, you know, and maybe if we decriminalised it, it would lose its appeal a bit. I don't know. And I think as well, the problem is that a lot of these drugs, there's a lot of stuff in them, a lot of nasty stuff, and maybe if we decriminalised it, you know, would it be pure substance?
I guess the argument against that is that, you know, well, drug dealers aren't just going to all of a sudden turn legitimate. They're always going to find a way to undercut, whether finding a way of making a better product or making it cheaper. You know, they're always going to exist.
I don't know, but if they're not, if they don't stand to make as much money, it might deter them.
Yeah,
So I also think there's a responsibility on places like festivals. Everyone knows that there's a huge amount of drug taking at them, and I think it's not good enough for them to just say, well, we're going to let young people get on with it. And I think there are other ways in which you can deal with that in the shorter term. And obviously, there's a big debate about decriminalisation, but there's an immediate problem. And the festivals they've cancelled the second day, but fine. But they knew that people were going to take drugs. I imagine they weren't searching people, they weren't doing.
Do you think they should stop everyone coming in that's found to have drugs on their person?
Well, it wouldn't be that difficult to search, and they do it in nightclubs, so you could do it at festivals. I imagine a lot of people wouldn't go to the festivals if they could.
They do it anyway. I mean, I've gone to a lot of festivals over the years, and you know, when you get to the very front of the queues, you know, you've always got police officers, and there's loads of them, you know, with sniffer dogs, and you know, they have an army of personnel there, but the drugs always do seem to slip in.
How do they get in?
Yeah. That's
the question, I suppose. Yeah. Let's move on to the Mail, Bobby. And this article's kind of holding Amazon to account. Their checks aren't stringent enough.
Yes, so we're a year on from the Manchester bomb, and Salman Abedi, who was the bomber, bought a lot of his ingredients for that bomb on Amazon. And what the Mail have done, part of their investigation, is to look at whether those ingredients are still available. And the answer is that they are. And so it's asking that Amazon does more. And the other thing that Amazon doesn't do, which government sources are saying that they would like it to do, is that if someone actually buys these ingredients, it's very easy for Amazon to see that they've done it, and they could tell the security services. So I can see why it's hard to stop people buying the ingredients sometimes, because the ingredients might be used for other things. But at the very least, you'd think that Amazon would be cooperating. But it feeds into the story of these huge tech companies not really being socially responsible. So whether that might be Facebook in a completely different way, or Amazon when it comes to ingredients, it's asking these companies actually to take some responsibility for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think there's a demand for this now. You know, Amazon, Facebook, I think the public have had enough, really, of these big tech companies, you know. So maybe there'll be some public pressure for Amazon to take some responsibility.
Alix, you've picked out the story in The Express. Incredible pictures that we saw yesterday morning of central London. It's Thunderbolt. Amazing stuff. Something out of a movie.
It is something out of a movie. And I picked this because I'm really embarrassed to say I slept through the whole thing.
Don't be embarrassed. That's good.
You know,
you sleep well.
Slept through it. And yeah, that's what happens when you have a 6-month-old. You get no sleep. So the minute
aren't you meant to be awake if you've got a 6-month?
I'll take any opportunity to sleep. But yeah, I mean, it was huge. Some people said it was so it was 20 times more than the average storm of 3,000 strikes. I mean, it was phenomenal and provided some great pictures. But yeah, thankfully no one was hurt.
It's funny all day yesterday, wasn't it? There wasn't like loads of sunshine, just quite muggy and sticky.
Yes, yes, it was. But I must admit that the thunder woke me up. I mean, I thought a bomb had gone off. It was incredibly loud. But yeah, apparently, and this is a figure that NAS put out before, 90,000 lightning strikes this weekend.
Crazy.
90,000.
I'll swap that for a bit of sunshine, though.
Yeah, we are going to have sunshine. We are going to have sunshine. We've just got time for this one in the Times. Apparently rum is taking over from gin. That was the in-drink.
Yes.
Rum's now the new thing.
So rum apparently is as popular as gin and whiskey, and now £1 billion worth of sales each year, up 17%. And it's because rum cocktails are back in fashion, so things like dark and stormies and daiquiris. Mojitos, exactly.
You seem to know them well, Bobby.
I've just been doing a lot of research.
Oh, right, sure.
Yeah.
Of course you have.
Right.
Yes.
So rum is the drink to have. Is it cheaper than whiskey and gin?
Well, no, this is what the article is actually saying, that there's a lot of expensive rum now. So I think we do actually think of rum going in cocktails or rum in a mixer, but actually in the same way that people drink nice whiskey and you sip it, apparently there are really nice rums that you can also just have individual bits of, and you can sit there sipping your rum.
I love the way he says apparently.
Apparently. I definitely don't drink nice whiskey.
We won't tell them about the little rum and coke that you had for breakfast. And Bobby, a little later on when we come back for more papers. Why wasn't his mummy running onto the field to give him a hug? But having to plead for mercy, I mean, that's taking it just a bit too far, isn't it?
It's so sad, but it also shows a reaction from people on social media. And
so disproportionate, isn't it? They go crazy over the smallest things.
Yeah, poor guy. He'll get over it. Let's hope he does.
Yeah,
He will. Let's have a look at the Telegraph, Alex. Stag parties.
Yes, raucous stag parties may be a thing of the past because men are afraid that in this digital age,
we're all looking at Gamal. Gamal had rather a riotous stag party a couple of years ago.
I went to a lovely Central European country where we did lots of culture, went to bed at 10 o'clock.
You kept asking me about my music. I'm going to keep asking you about your stag do.
Went to a flower show, went to a music concert, and like I say, was in bed at 10 o'clock.
You're missing out a bit where you were handcuffed to a person that you've never met.
No, I didn't.
Let's talk about the story.
Yes, so men are afraid that they are going to be shamed, that the videos of their antics, their embarrassing antics, will go viral and get them into trouble with their wives and work. And
and in-laws, I suppose.
And in-laws, everybody, yeah. I mean, I think it's not just men. I've been on many a hen party that has been quite wild. I remember bumping into a hen party in Stansted Airport, and there was a woman clearly in her 70s, so she must have been someone's granny. She was wearing a hat with male genitalia all around the brim. You know, and I just think, would you really invite your granny in something like that? So I think there is a case to be made. Just let's tone it down.
She might have brought it herself. You know.
She might have been well up for
She
it.
instigated it all. Come on, girls, let's go.
But yeah, I think let's still have a bit of fun. But yeah, just maybe there's an argument to be made for just making it slightly classy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The mobile phones kill the stag star, hasn't it, really?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be evidence. Just time for the last story with you, Bobby. This is in the Mirror.
Yes, it's a hilarious story about a train that managed to get lost, which I didn't even know was possible. How do you get lost? I mean,
But it's got to be on a track. How can you...
Yes, you think you just press stop and start, right? And that's it. But apparently trains can get lost. It got diverted, and then passengers got a message saying it was that they were lost near Pontefract, which is a kind of phrase that really, you know, instills fear in you when you hear that.
Sounds like the title of a film, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Lost.
And it had to reverse back up the tracks for an hour, so it doesn't happen often, fortunately.
So it got diverted. That's it, basically, isn't it?
Well, it got diverted the wrong way. So they took obviously the signals were in the wrong direction. So it just literally went to the other side of the country from where it was meant to be. And you think at what point surely someone would spot it, you know, after a few minutes.
Yes.
No, it took an hour.
Bad day at the office, isn't it?
I wonder if the signalman's still in a job there. We shall see. We'll find out. Alex and Bobby, thank you so much. See you a little later on. Let's see what's happening with the weather now with Ness.